Well, this movie was interesting because the gang is multi-ethnic.
I went ahead and started recording, by the way. That's what
I see that, yeah.
Avoid legal snags by letting people, know they're being recorded.
Yeah.
Welcome to Trash Canon, by the way. And I am very pleased to have on my good friend Jonathan Root, who is a historian of pop culture in the 20th century. So we're going to bring Death Wish 3 to sophisticated analysis that it deserves.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. Thank you. Actually, so when you first asked me to do this a few weeks ago, I was excited. So I enjoy listening to your podcast, actually.
Thank you.
It's really good. But
despite the audio problems that hopefully we won't have.
I was thinking about, so at some point, so I am a unashamed, unironic lover of trash movies. Especially lately, Amazon Prime now has all these straight-to-video action movies from the 90s and early 2000s. I love them. I'll sit and watch them for hours. But it's I was thinking about when we first met. You realize, Chad, it was almost 10 years ago?
Oh, God.
It would have been fall 2009.
Right.
But we didn't have a class together until historiography in 2010. Then we discovered our mutual love for trash movies, for B movies. It must have been around then, right? Or we started hanging out with Bob. It would have been a few years later. But at some point, yeah, I could not remember how all that happened, how we came to realize we both love these types of movies. But I have a genuine appreciation for watching them. I love it. So that's trying to go back into our memory bank. We remember when it was we first discovered this about each other.
Yeah, it united us, and
yeah.
I wish I could remember what first movie we talked about, but
yeah, was it a Mystery Science Theater 3000 thing came up maybe?
Yeah, that must have been it.
Usually with people is it comes out that they like Mystery Science Theater 3000. And then we say, oh yeah, by the way, I've seen these movies without the commentary. And then we, I've seen Future War several times without the commentary. And I love it. Sam, I'm trying to remember how far back. It's been 10 years is a long time, Chad.
Yeah, definitely is.
Jesus. Old.
Speaking of old.
yeah. Oh, he was like in his mid-60s when he made this movie.
Yeah, and I actually honestly didn't remember that there were two Death Wishes after this one. Death Wish 4 to Crackdown and Death Wish 5, The Face of Death, which came out in the early 90s, which was called The Face of Death because by that point Charles Bronson was indeed the face of death.
Yeah, he didn't even look too good in Death Wish 3.
No. And this Death Wish 5 was 10 years later, and I sadly don't think I've seen it.
I have it on VHS. I'm actually looking at it right now.
We should talk about that at some point.
Maybe to watch that one soon.
Yeah, we'd probably be the only two people in history who actually saw it and discussed it.
Yeah,
but I was actually thinking about the fact that I actually haven't seen the original Death Wish. I did see Death Wish 2, and you know that I'm not the most people would not call me woke. I'm definitely not easily offended by movies, but after seeing Death Wish 2, I needed to take a shower.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just I
haven't seen two. I think I've seen 1, 3, and 4.
Okay. Yeah, what did you think about the original one?
See, I don't remember. It's if I saw it would have been 15 some odd years ago. It would have been like 20. So I don't remember it. All I remember is, again, the violence is as graphic as the third and fourth one. Third and fourth one were a little more over the top with their violence, especially the last kind of battle scenes. But I seem to remember, at least the first one, there seemed to be motivation for his violence. This one, third one, there is none.
Yeah.
And it's just violence for violence sake. It's kind of sickening.
Yeah.
It's just so negative and such a cynical movie.
Yeah, it's well, we can get into that, but I think it's like it's disturbing, but if you turn your brain off, it's a lot of fun. It's one of those movies.
It is, yeah. It's so. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's dumb. It's just mindless lizard brain fun. I bet Donald Trump would love this movie.
Oh yeah, let's get
Speaking of
political.
brainless,
Well,
his favorite movie is Bloodsport. Did you know that? Or one of his favorite movies?
did he say that?
Have you heard this story about Donald Trump and Bloodsport?
No, no.
Oh, God, so he, I think I think there's a New Yorker piece about him or something. But the reporter shows up. This is still VHS days. He made, I think it was Don Jr. Eric, get up and fast forward to the boring scenes of Bloodsport. The reporter there.
Oh my God, that actually makes me relate to Donald Trump a little bit.
Yeah, I know, right?
But can you imagine how many like 10, like something like 10% of the movie Bloodsport has to be connected to non-violent, stuff. So
Yeah.
I mean, so you can just imagine how ADHD Donald Trump must be if he can't even stand like the few scenes in Bloodsport that involve character development.
Which are basically none. I watched a movie recently. There's almost none. Almost none. Well, what's so crazy is that, again, in the racial politics of these Death Wish movies, he's all in line with, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Which I think eventually we should talk about the racial politics of these movies, especially the third one here, because I have a theory about why they wrote it the way they did, especially compared to the second and the fourth one.
Yeah.
I right about the second one, but apparently its racial politics are shocking.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, it's really impossible to talk about these movies without going into the politics, especially because of how the first movie is a portrayal of what the novelist Brian Garfield set out to do, which was to write a story about a man who starts out as a, quote, bleeding heart liberal, and then after his family is broken apart by horrific violence, I believe, like in the movie and the novel, his wife is murdered. What, wife and son, or just his
daughter?
Wife?
The movie's daughter. Yeah, his wife and daughter are robbed or mugged, and they find out they don't have much money. They rape daughter, I think.
Yeah.
The mother dies from her injuries. The daughter is catatonic in a mental hospital.
Yeah, that's right. And she commits suicide in the second movie, which is one of the reasons why I had to take a shower after watching it. But the first Death Wish, in the novel, it's the moral is basically don't become a vigilante, or you'll become you'll develop as much of a violent, self-destructive ethos as the people you're seeking to revenge yourself upon, and you'll destroy what's left of your family. And the movie, it has like a little bit of that, but for the most part, it's like, hey, look how awesome it is that this guy is taking justice to the streets, taking it into his own hands, and like the justice system is broken, so because of bleeding heart liberals, so guys like Kersey,
Paul Kersey,
yeah, Paul Kersey, but I keep wanting to call him Charles Bronson.
Yeah, call him Charles Bronson. I'm gonna call the bald police chief the guy from the worst episode of the X-Files ever.
Which one is that?
Oh, so Ed Lauter, the chief in Death Wish 3, he's in space. He's about the face on Mars in the X-Files.
Oh yeah.
I hate that episode. Might be the worst one.
I just remember him from Star Trek. I forgot he was in X-Files too.
Yeah, he's in that one episode. Like Mulder's idol or something or other. It's terrible.
But I wanted to throw out there that like Brian Garfield was so horrified by the movie that he wrote a sequel, Death Sentence, where Kersey actually ends up fighting another vigilante who's worse than he is, and it makes it very explicit that Garfield did not set out to romanticize vigilantism.
Yeah, no. That's what I read about the novel and the author's response to the movie, that he was horrified by it. From the checks.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Oh no. I mean, I would do the same. But did you ever see? Because they actually did in the 2000s. They did a movie with Kevin Bacon, confusingly named Death Sentence, but they did one. They did a movie that was like a more faithful adaptation of the novel. Did you ever see that?
I did not see that one. No.
It's good. Not as fun as the Death Wish movies, obviously, yeah. But you can really see why Garfield felt that it was a betrayal of his vision. But yeah, I mean, you talked about your theory. Why don't you go into the? Oh wait, let me drop one more bit of trivia real quick. The script to Death Wish 3 was written by Don Jacoby, who wrote or co-wrote some of my favorite movies, including Arachnophobia, which I loved growing up and which I still enjoy today, Life Force, aka the Naked Vampire in London movie by Tobe Hooper. And he also did another Tobe Hooper movie, Invaders from Mars, which I think is underrated. It's not one of Tobe Hooper's best, I admit, but it's a lot of fun. He, like Brian Garfield, was dissatisfied by the final product. His original script apparently got butchered and severely rewritten, I think, by Michael Winner, the British Tory director of the movie. So I actually have a theory of my own about what Don Jacoby's original script looked like.
Oh, okay.
I'll get into that later, but I think you can still see traces of it in the movie. But yeah, you talk about the theory that you have, and as a historian, what you make out of the politics of these movies.
I will. Maybe we should do a quick rundown of the plot before we get started. Too much?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can.
Or not, talk. Just as we go along, just talk about it too. So,
well, I mean, yeah, just for the sake of listeners, yeah, the movie, and then God knows if there isn't much plot. It's
doesn't open with Charlie, right? Charles Bronson's friend getting killed by this gang.
Yeah. Who? I mean, there's like an entire apartment block that's been consistently terrorized by a gang, and they assassinate Charlie because he's like the only person who stood up to them. Yeah, and of course he's like a Vietnam vet or World War II vet. Korean War. Okay.
Yeah, that's where he met Kersey in the Korean War.
Oh, that's right. All the wars are just merging in my head.
Yeah, Kersey was a conscientious objector during the war, but he served as a combatman.
Oh, that's right.
That's how he met Charlie. Yeah, so Charlie was killed. And so anyway, but Charles Bronson somehow has some kind of weird sixth sense that something is wrong with his friend. He's on a bus at the beginning. And he calls his friend and the phone goes dead. And she's like, oh, bro, something's wrong. Oh, and the gang features Alex Winter of Ted, right?
Bill and Ted, yeah.
And so he shows up. Charlie's dying. Charlie says, hey, take care of my stuff. And Charles Bronson's all right, cool, man. I'll take care of your stuff. The cops walk in. Charles Bronson has a gun out. They arrest Charles Bronson.
Yeah, and he's taken before the police chief who is like, maybe I should have you killed. Mm-hmm. And another great line, I get to violate your constitutional rights.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And then, so Charles Bronson's getting kind of roughed up by some other cops, and the chief walks in. Ed Lauter as the actor. I read his Wikipedia page, and one of the descriptions of him is he was always known for his male pattern baldness. That's not a character trait or anything about the guy. And as a balding man, that's offensive. Me and Larry David are gonna don't like that disparagement of the bald community. So Ed Lowther and Charles Bronson kicks him in the dick, right? Then he kicks him in
knocks
the
him
dick
over
and
or
gets tossed
something.
into the holding cell.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's tossed in the holding cell where he puts a fat guy's head through the bars.
Yeah. And the gang leader just happens to be there, whose name I can't remember. I don't even know if they give it in the
It's
movie.
Manny something.
Yeah,
His character is Manny something. He was the villain in Willow.
that's right.
He's also in Superman 3.
Is he?
Yeah, he is the drunk guy, I think, who hits on Lana Lang and has
Oh, yeah.
to turn the key at the same time or something or other. It's been a long time since I've seen Superman 3. But yeah, he's the bad guy in Willow. He's in Superman 3. He has a reverse mohawk where his head is shaved down the middle. He has hair on the sides. And so what happens from there? Somehow Lowther, or this police chief, of course, recognized Kersey, and at one point says, "Hey, I'll let you out if you help me take care of this riffraff."
Yeah.
And Kersey is like, "Nah, I'm not going to do that for you." But he lets him go anyway. And then the chief lets the gang leader go, right?
He doesn't explicitly step in to let the gang leader go. I think the gang leader just is released. And then you have the public defender, Catherine.
Yeah. Right, so the gang leader gets out, and Charles Bronson goes to this, some sort of projects, some kind of bad neighborhood in some part of New York. Is it supposed to be Brooklyn, or is it supposed to be Queens, maybe? I don't know.
I don't think they ever clarify.
Yeah. So, and here's the spot where we can stop and talk for a little bit. But the makeup of this neighborhood is wild, because it opens, I think, so before. Well, while Charlie's being killed, the camera goes to different apartments. There's an old Jewish couple with a menorah in the foreground. And eventually, when they do a close-up of the Jewish guy, you see his yarmulke. So he has pictures of rabbis on his wall. So then you know he's Jewish. And later on, making stuffed cabbage, which Charles Bronson loves the smell of stuffed cabbage. Plenty of stuffed cabbage notoriously smells bad. So you have a Jewish couple. You have the Latino couple with images of Jesus and Mary everywhere.
and the wife, Maria, I think.
Yeah. Who went on to be in Star Trek, I guess.
Yeah. It's Marina Sirtis, and of course she's Greek, but they pass her off as Hispanic anyway.
Yeah, she's olive skinned, so close enough.
Yeah, which is probably why she only gets two lines in the entire movie, so she doesn't give away her accent or lack thereof.
And her husband is Rodriguez, who becomes friends with Charles Bronson eventually, and participates in the killing of massive amounts of teenagers.
And Maria also becomes the subject of the movie's one rape scene.
Yeah, and it's horrifying. It's so graphic.
Yeah.
And graphic in a way that Michael Winner was probably enjoying filming it, right? That kind of leery grossness of it.
And we talked about it before I started recording, so I should probably it's worth repeating that if you go to, because I think they talk about it in the Electric Boogaloo documentary, Marina Sirtis, because they interview her.
Yeah,
and she
at the time, I think, right?
Huh?
Were they dating at the time? Was she dating Michael Winner?
I don't remember.
He was a known creep.
Okay, I was just gonna say, yeah, because I think she talks about like how she was topless during the rape scene, and like they were filming it outdoors, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the drafty building, I can't remember which. And she was cold, and she said, can I like at least put a blanket or something over me? And Michael Winter's like, no, that would ruin the lighting or something like that. It's just really creepy.
Yeah. He's awful. Glad he's dead, right?
Well, did I ever tell you the story of from Red Letter Media when they talked about this movie?
No.
And it's like a story. Well, Mike, the head Red Letter Media guy, is a huge Star Trek fan, and he was talking about how he was at a Star Trek convention, and Marina Sirtis was talking about like she got up to speak, and she actually got emotional and started talking about how grateful she was for Star Trek because it saved her from having to do all these dirty movies, and like she was getting angry as she talked, and like when you watch this you realize that, oh my god, this is exactly what she was talking about.
Yeah, god, dude, it's awful.
I should be laughing when I say that, but I mean it kind of is when you think about like what she must have gone through and just like how absurd that kind of thing is.
Right. Yeah. No, it's disgusting. But she did well for herself. So she was on Star Trek at the time, right?
Yeah. I mean, sadly, she ended up getting telepathically raped in Star Trek Nemesis, the movie. But overall, it was an improvement to what she had been doing.
So anyway, you got this neighborhood. You got a Jewish couple who become, and they all love it when he kills these teenagers in the neighborhood. When he massacres them. Yeah, it's insane because eventually they help massacre the teenagers. It's just bonkers. It's insane. To put this down on paper and like, yeah, this is a good idea for a movie. This is gonna sell.
Yeah, because there's that one scene he shoots the giggler,
who's
one of the leading gang members, in the back. And I mean, the movie, I guess in its defense, it tries to, because it has like a comment about how he like raped and murdered a woman earlier or something, but we don't see him doing anything all that bad except I think like harassing some people and stealing a purse or something.
Purse snatching, yeah.
Yeah, purse snatching, and Bronson just like shoots him, and like the entire freaking neighborhood like comes out, and they're like, "Yeah, he shot the creep," and everybody calls the gang members creeps.
It's a murder. I just wants to murder that kid. There's no way around it. He murdered.
And even then, I mean, we got to talk about it later, but like during the huge climax. The scene where like this like old timey middle-aged biker gang gets murdered by a bunch of by some people in the neighborhood. Like they put out like wire on the street and it knocks over the bicyclist, and then they like, I can't remember if they shoot him or beat them to death. They do something.
They beat someone to death. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like children like. At most middle school aged children, possibly younger, like come out and they start dancing around the corpses.
Dude, it's weird. So this neighborhood anyway, they get to that point eventually. So you have, elderly black woman who lives there. She's one of the people. Giggler steals her purse at one point, and then you have the couple who owns a laundromat, I think, right? An old white couple. So basically, point is, it's a multi-ethnic neighborhood. All these ethnicities live in this one apartment building. Jewish, black, Latino, white. I would assume, I don't remember, but the laundromat couple may have been some kind of Eastern European, maybe.
I think so.
So anyway, it is like a melting pot, right? Kind of Ellis Island all in one grungy place. And so you had a cell block, and Charles Bronson shows up. One of the first things he does is he gets a P.O. box. It becomes important later on because you can mail order rocket launchers in the 80s, apparently. I don't know if you could ever do that, but it's is pretty boss, right? He does it by phone. So he orders. So he gets a PO box. He buys a car with cash, and he meets an old man named Bennett, who was a World War II veteran.
Yeah,
and he was also one of Charlie's friends.
And he also looks like a discount Ernest Borgnine.
He does, yes. Yeah, Ernest Borgnine and I share a birthday, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was actually watching this. I was like Ernest Borgnine. I need to watch Merlin's Shop of Mystical Wonder soon.
Well, did you ever hear about the Fox News interview where Ernest Borgnine, he was asked how he managed to stay alive so long?
No.
And he just flat out says masturbating.
Awesome. Yes. I think Kurt Vonnegut has something similar. It was like cigarettes and martinis or something. I mean, Kurt Vonnegut doesn't say he masturbated to stay alive. I'm sure he would have. So
masturbation's better for you. So
it is, yeah. One of the first memories I had of you was it was like our first week in Colombia, and you were yelling something about how you were an expert or could talk forever about Thomas Aquinas and masturbating. Thomas Aquinas' opinions on it. And I'm like, who in the hell is this guy? Like, who is this person? You were holding court over some people, and after that, looking back, I was like, oh no, that sounds like something Chad would say at a party.
It's true, though.
Yeah, I know. And so, anyway, he has this, and here's one of the, again, kind of the tone of the movie. So he sets his car up as bait, and the gang, so there's a gang that terrorizes this neighborhood. And what's interesting is that it's, again, this multi-ethnic gang. The leader's a white guy who I think he's actually Irish, but he's doing a really bad American accent in it. And you have like Rastafarians in it. You notice that? You have guys with dreadlocks. You have Latinos in the gang. You have African Americans. It's this multi-ethnic neighborhood and a multi-ethnic gang.
Yeah.
And so he goes to have, all right, we'll kind of speed this up. So he eventually ends up eating dinner with this Jewish couple, and he hears them breaking into his car, goes outside and shoots these kids. And he comes in, and everyone's like, oh, well, that's what's going on. It's taking care of my car. I was like, what? Your dinner guest stepped outside, murdered 2 people, and comes back in, right? It's just... Right. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, they're just kind of casual with it. So I think the movie... So here's why... So talking about this multi-ethnic neighborhood, we're talking about this multi-ethnic gang. Here's what I think the movie is trying to do with race. No, I haven't seen Death Wish 2, which is apparently its racial politics are horrifying. But in this one... and again, the third one still has horrifying racial politics, right? It's still white reactionary. So at one point in the movie, Bennett, the old white guy, says, they call us old, but 20 years ago, we used to run the country. Like that. That's just this white reactionary Donald Trump just getting a big rubbery when watching that. And so, so what I think the movie was trying to do was by having a multi-ethnic gang, saying, hey, Charles Bronson doesn't just kill brown people.
Yeah.
It's not just killing people of color. He's killing white gang members, too. So it's not racist. Right? This is not a racist franchise. It's not a racist movie because he is doing these things. But it seems at the end of the day, it's still the people of color getting the worst of it.
Yeah, because I was also thinking, I kind of wonder, and I think the Electric Boogaloo documentary pointed out too, I kind of wonder if it was like the Globus and I'm blanking on the other guy.
Gollum, right?
Yeah, Gollum and Globus. If that might have been their influence a little bit. Maybe not so much with the gang, because I think you're right that it was like kind of an attempt at course correction after the criticisms of the first 2 movies.
Yeah.
maybe like their influence came through in, depicting America as like this happy melting pot. It's just like different people can live inside the same building and, build a community and stuff. And like the more problematic stuff is coming from Michael Winter, who we have to emphasize was openly conservative. I shouldn't say openly conservative. I should say openly reactionary. I would go that far.
Reactionary, yeah.
And you see it in when you brought this up, I remember one scene that I actually kind of forgot, even though I just watched a movie this morning. Because you have that scene where like the police come by the apartment and they harass the old Jewish couple about a gun that the guy has, and the guy's forced to surrender it or the cops will arrest him. And like the very next scene, their window gets broken in, and like this tall, very fit, very buff black guy climbs through the window and like terrorizes them and extorts them, and it just goes, we could come anytime we want, and it's like, it's like an NRA ad that's been put into the
it is like the cops are gonna come steal your guns, and what are you gonna have to protect yourself from these bands of roving people of color? And it's the people of color who commit the most heinous violence in the movie too.
Yeah.
So it's. I think you're right. I think that there was, as much as Canon could try to do a social commentary of some sort, that was maybe an attempt to say, "Hey, look, all these different people can live together." But Michael Winter's reactionary politics is just too much. That's why I think that it was an attempt at course correction, and it doesn't work as course correction. But at least it's an attempt, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to make of this movie, to be honest. Watching it, I guys don't know. This doesn't make any sense. I don't. Again, which gets to, also the police. So I think that the cops, at least in the first one and others, are shown as ineffective. And in this one, you can't tell if they're corrupt or bumbling. Because so you would think when you watch the movie, when they go take the Jewish guy's gun, that they're doing it because they're corrupt.
Yeah.
That they're doing it because they're working at the gang. But that never plays itself out. I mean, nothing comes from that. So I don't know if that just was up on the editing room floor, or it was just bad storytelling.
Well, that fits into my theory about the scripts. Which...
Oh yeah, I want to hear this now. Yeah, 3 of the scripts.
Oh well, we should probably just wrap up by saying that, like, by talking about how the movie ends for those of for everyone who hasn't watched it, but like the whole we forgot about Catherine, the public defender.
Oh yes, right, yeah.
Yeah, which is easy to do because she only has like 4 scenes in the whole movie.
Yeah, right. And so there's a love interest in the movie, and Catherine, public defender, sees Charles Bronson in the holding cell, and then she asks the chief about him.
Yeah.
Hey, who's that stud, basically? And she goes to the projects to see him and says, "Hey, what's up?" I don't do this very often, but you go out. And I said, "You know why you don't do it? Because it's unethical. Because you're a public defender and you can your clients. That's why you don't do it. Because it is. You can probably be disbarred for doing that, ladies. That's why you don't do it."
Yeah, we should probably clarify that the actress playing Catherine is old enough to be Charles's daughter, or maybe even granddaughter. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's at least twice her age.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she wants to, she's raring to go, basically. And
she seeks him out.
Yeah. And he goes to her house for dinner one night, and she's basically more or less giving him bedroom eyes.
Mm-hmm.
The first date, but he goes home because he needs to go kill people. Is it after the first date when he shoots down Giggler?
I think so, yeah.
And she ends up getting killed by the gang.
Yeah, they don't rape her,
They
which
don't.
which is like the most restraint this movie shows.
Yeah.
But it does lead to like my second favorite scene, which is they knock her out, and they release her car's parking brake and send it down the street while Charles Bronson is getting ice cream or something.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and her car crashes into another car, slices through the other car like a knife through butter, and then the other car explodes, and then her car explodes too. And it's just so.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's stupid.
Well, it's like it just makes me think. I mean, one of the reasons I love because I grew up with The Simpsons before I was exposed to movies like this, so that kind of makes it funnier.
Yep.
Because I keep thinking of like the stuff that Simpsons makes fun of comes from movies like this.
Things blowing up in the slightest touch. Yeah, so you have that Captain Public Defender who, is all hot for the 65-year-old man.
And she doesn't really affect the plot at all because you'd think that this would be like, well, I mean, Charles Bronson is already killing people. He doesn't need the added motivation.
No, the thing is that he has no motivation in this movie, really.
Yeah, I mean,
his friend is killed, but
his friend is killed, but
but other than that, it's just he's just violent because he's a psychopath.
Yeah.
I don't know if they intended to make him a psychopath, but it works. Especially again, that I keep going back to that scene with the Jewish family, like the Jewish couple. He shoots 2 kids and goes inside and just continues to eat as if nothing happened. It's insane, and he takes glee in killing people.
But when Catherine dies, his reaction is like best described as mild annoyance because there's like a close up of his face, and it's like, what are the odds?
He dies after they have sex, of course.
Right. I think the very night. I think they had sex, and then
they had sex and they go get ice cream.
Which is so. I mean, that is what I like about this movie is that it really. If it had been written as a parody of 80s action movies, I don't think you could have done a much better job. I mean, the only thing missing is the cheesy one-liners, and Charles Bronson is above that kind of thing.
You're right. I had that same thought in the final battle that this is a parody more than anything else.
Yeah. Oh God, we gotta talk about how the final battle starts, because basically the gang leader, with one phone call, he causes like all the gangs in New York City to descend upon this neighborhood, and a total fucking war breaks out.
I don't know where he's getting this biker gang from. Yeah, and he calls on the phone. It's so funny because he's in the movie showing this malicious, psychopath. On the phone, he's so polite. Like, hey, can you send whatever you got, please? What? Who is this guy? Yeah. It's a simple phone call. He gets these gangs to come, and Charles Bronson has like this 30 caliber machine gun, just mowing people down. And
World War II era machine gun that he gets from not Ernest Borgnine.
Yeah, Bennett. Yeah,
Bennett. Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, it was Charlie's gun, wasn't it? I think it was Charlie's. I think so.
Oh, it was.
Well, Charlie has all these military guns. Like, Charlie, you're a thief. You're stealing from the American government. Right? You stole these guns from the U.S. Army. So, yeah, he's mowing down all these people, and it's like a combination of those old like 50s and 60s World War II movies, I mean, it's Massive Melee or Battle, and then mixing it with a Western. Right, just this shootout at the end, and it's just thousands of bullets,
people on fire, cars blowing up.
Yeah, the neighborhood participating eventually. So as soon as the battle starts, everyone in the neighborhood goes into their underwear drawer and takes out guns.
Yeah,
and they start
and
killing people. And Rodriguez has his little zip gun. All he got is a zip gun. It's like, oh well, it's not gonna be much use. Yeah, what got me was the other problem, and then you mentioned this earlier, when they use a chain to knock these guys off their motorcycles,
Mhm.
and these people come out of the woodwork and just start beating the people to death. And then it ends with Charles Bronson shooting a rocket launcher at the main bad guy and blowing up half the apartment, and everyone cheers. Like, you just saw a guy get exploded, right? It's it's gonna be a horrifying thing to see, and
Yeah.
everyone is just like, well, all right, cool, and the gang just walks away.
Yeah, because like, and that's like the only moment of humanization that the gang gets is the gang leader's girlfriend screams with genuine grief when she sees it, and she apparently becomes the leader now that he's dead, and she just like holds up her hand, and they all leave and go back to wherever because it's never made clear like if they're actually a part of the neighborhood too, or
Yeah, no,
you know
which is
off somewhere.
so weird. Yeah. So one thing that I want to add that's always struck me about these kinds of action movies is, particularly, of course, the neighborhood participating is disturbing, but how casual the main characters are about killing people.
Yeah.
They go on, they just act as if it's something that you just do, and not this very traumatic experience of blowing up another rocket launcher. They crack jokes.
Yeah, and that's something that the first Death Wish actually did well, at least at the beginning. It's like the first time Charles Bronson kills somebody, he throws up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
And that's the same from the novel, I think.
But this
But
time, he's basically he's basically a paid vigilante.
yeah. And I mean, yeah, that's what kind of makes this movie like you'll either find it disturbing or so over the top you'll find it hilarious,
Yeah.
is the fact that you get average everyday people celebrating just these horrible massacres. And I mean, they portray the gang members in as bad a light as possible. Like I said, there's only one humanizing moment out of the entire movie, but it doesn't really detract from just how dark it is, to be honest.
Which I mean, I want to bring up the gang really quick. I mean, they rape Maria, but other than that, how awful were they? At least from what we see. I mean, they steal some TVs, they steal a car stereo.
Yeah, they extort money.
Yeah, so they're not. I don't know, like a bunch of teenagers. Just. I mean, they're bad, of course, but they're not. Besides the rape, they're not this over the top. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, there's like one. Yeah, I mean, there's like a throwaway reference to the giggler raping
That's
a
true.
woman,
yeah.
but again, I mean, we don't actually see it, and other than that, he's actually one of the. From what we see, he's one of the more harmless gang members.
Yeah, he steals a purse and he steals the camera from Charles Bronson. Charles Bronson is bait. Like, shakes his ass and walks with this camera slung on his shoulder, and that shoots him in the back. So one other thing that struck me. So this movie is, comes out in what, 85, I think. Yeah. 85. So one thing that I was surprised was not in the movie was crack.
Yeah.
The gang members use cocaine. Some of them do anyway, but it's not something they're all doing. But so, yeah, it's a 1980s movie about gang violence in the inner city in New York, and there's no crack. So that, to me, that was surprising that they didn't include that in it. Because if anything, you think the white people seeing this movie are going to see you included crack in it, but that's not in it at all. So maybe that fits in, though, into your different script theory. Maybe I don't know. You still haven't explained it to me, Chad.
Yeah, a little bit. I'll get there because I think there's also like lingering shots of like long abandoned office buildings that you get. So it's kind of like there's sort of a gesture toward there being systemic issues that are probably leading to all this crime.
Right.
But I think that I honestly and I swear I did more research than I normally did because I was so desperate to find out more about what this original script was like, but I really couldn't find anything except them pointing out that the screenwriter pulled a Alan Smithy. That's not the name he went with, but it was a name like that.
Right.
So he had to have been really disgruntled with what they did with his script. But yeah, my theory is that honestly, I think that the original script was probably more complex than just, terrorizing than Charles Bronson going after gang members. Because I think in the original version of the script, like the police chief was an antagonist.
Oh, okay.
I mean, obviously, I don't know what the plan would have been, but I think that it would have turned out that he was working with the gang in some way,
Right.
either as part of like a Penguin and Batman Returns-esque plot to make himself look good and try to become mayor or something like that, or as part of like some kind of drug plot.
Right.
But like the implication would have been, well, not the implication, but the sequel escalation would have been, what if Charles Bronson is put in a situation where it's not just criminals he has to fight, it's like a corrupt system.
Oh, gotcha.
And probably would have explored like the implications of that and some other stuff. And maybe it would have turned out that Charlie was targeted by the gang not because he was like the only one to stand up to them, but because he knew something.
Right.
And that it was actually the police chief who ordered his assassination. So that would have been a twist. And like maybe originally Catherine had a bigger role where she was investigating. She was doing research for a case or something, and so she also found evidence. So she would have either been Charles Bronson's ally or she would have been killed because of what she knew, and that would have led Charles Bronson to uncovering what was really going on. And like the evidence I have for this, admittedly, it's not much, but it's like the police chief's character doesn't really make sense unless he was meant to be a villain because of the way he abuses Charles Bronson at the very beginning. He threatens to kill him. And then all of a sudden his behavior shifts on a dime as if, oh, wait, I can use him in some way.
Yeah. Well, at the end, the police chief is killing people with Charles Bronson.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's certainly, he's trying to keep his hand, at the very least, he's trying to keep his hands clean. And also, like, in the mid-scenes where the police chief shows up to try to get information on the gang from Charles Bronson acts suspicious of him.
Right.
He doesn't trust him. They're definitely not buddy-buddy like they are by the end of the movie. So I think that, like, the script was so clumsily butchered that there were still these scenes and lines that were supposed to build up to a twist where it turns out that the police chief is in cahoots with the gang, but they changed it so that the police chief instead is Charles Bronson's ally completely. But I mean, as it is, like the police chief's nothing about the police chief entire. I mean, I hate to even use the word character arc because that really is one.
Mm-hmm.
He in the movie as it is, he's basically just a plot device,
Yeah.
I mean, you have that whole scene where he and Charles Bronson are talking, and Charles goes, "You're turning me loose. I'm turning you loose," and like, but he didn't need to do that. There's like no reason, because I mean, Charles Bronson was going to do all this anyway. It's not like he's worried that the police chief will have him arrested like he threatens to do.
Yeah. And I think you're right, and that would explain the two patrolmen going over to the Jewish couple's house and taking their gun.
Yeah.
He's somehow involved in that. The police chief has the people he knows he can trust under him to carry out his plan with the gang and controlling the neighborhood. But there doesn't seem to be But this neighborhood doesn't seem to have anything going for it that you would want to control. I mean, they don't show the gang selling drugs at all. The gang is using the drugs. There's like no one seems to work except for the people who own the laundromat. So I don't know what about this particular neighborhood people would want to control other than just a bunch of shithead kids who are terrorizing these innocent multi-ethnic neighborhood. I don't get it. But the movie's interesting. And again, this is common in these 80s action movies that they at least take place in the US is this urban kind of decay. So what is it, the broken windows theory? I think it is. Mm-hmm. Right, that if a neighborhood has broken windows, don't fix it because it's gonna be broken again next week.
Yeah.
So, kind of abandon these places. And so it seems to me that this movie is appealing to, I guess, I don't know what audience this is trying to appeal to, but this is what the urban life is like. You got these kids, which 80s New York apparently was that way, which apparently was awful. So you have this sense of, which why the movie is so interesting is you have, we need Charles Bronson to come in, and we need the neighborhood to take matters into their own hands. But at the end, the police are involved. So the police participate in the shootout. The police chief, but also you have cops showing up in their patrol cars in the shootout. And so it seems to be, the movie is saying, yeah, you need vigilantes, but the police will help or can help, although not very effective. But still, the police are still on the vigilantes' side at the end of the day. So it's a weird mixed messages, I think, because unless the theory is similar to Dirty Harry, that you got to have the only good cops are anti-establishment cops. Which must be what this movie's probably going for, is that the chief is effective because he's good because he recognizes why we need someone like Charles Bronson, someone who can operate outside of the law, someone who doesn't have to follow code conduct or proper ethics, but can just shoot kids in the back for stealing a camera.
Right, but I mean, I think it kind of does support my theory that there was because it's inconsistent how much the chief and the police care about the rules. Like 1 minute they're turning their backs on Charles Bronson doing whatever he wants, and the next they're confiscating a gun from the Jewish couple.
Right. I cannot suss out the politics. It's just because they're just so. I mean, really, it's kind of an amoral movie.
Yeah, it really is, and I think the first two Death Wish movies are extremely political because they flat out have Kersey. The first one, Kersey, identifies as a bleeding heart liberal, and he changes. And in the second movie, I still remember the scene. It's like one of the more famous scenes. Like he's actually listening to, I guess, Rush Limbaugh before Rush Limbaugh existed. Okay. And the housemaid complains about it, and shoots her. No, he doesn't shoot her, but it's like the implication is that that Kersey has joined the right wing, and Death Wish 3 is weird because it does, like you said, it has mixed messages. It's pro diversity in this really weird way, it's awesome when Black people and Jewish people and Hispanics can live together, but at the same time, there's the whole thing with the with gun control. Like New York's gun control laws are bad, and we need to have more people fight. Because they even have Catherine, the public defender, go, "People need to fight back." And she's sick of the system and everything, but so I don't know. It's kind of interesting because it kind of defies the right left dichotomy, but at the same time, it's definitely a reactionary
Oh
movie.
yeah, for sure. It's definitely still reactionary. Yeah, and yeah, and so it seems to me that there's of course room for police officers, but the only cops are effective. These ones in leadership are the ones who are willing to turn a blind eye toward actions of people like Charles Bronson. It's kind of like Commissioner Gordon and Batman, right? That, hey, don't really approve of all this, but you're making our job easier.
Yeah.
Kind of you're doing things that we can't do. And so I guess that's the messaging of the day is we need to have vigilantes, but also take restrictions off of police officers to allow them to be more effective. Because at one point, a police officer talks about, I think because they say there's a meeting with the police chief and the captain says, hey, we have increased our patrols, but increased patrols are still more crime. Right? Doesn't cut back on crime. But once you get Charles Bronson involved, killing people, and then you get the police killing people, then crime goes down. So it's basically saying, listen, you need to put all the cops in the street you want until you allow them to do what needs to be done. Nothing's going to change. I'm not going to see any only abuse and violence going to happen with taking limitations off of police officers. I mean, we see that. I mean, that's the same right-wing kind of right-wing reactionary argument today, right? That there's too many rules put on cops. And that's why their job is so hard because they deal with these things, but they need to be allowed to take the gloves off every now and then, so to speak, in order to be effective. It's like Donald Trump pardoning all these war criminals.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes these things have to happen.
Because the gang members don't have families. They don't have their own community outside of their bubble,
Right.
They're completely outside society.
Right. I mean, a lot of them are just like teenagers, right? So they're just probably poor homeless kids who are stealing to make money. They're drug addicts, and so some again they're teenagers usually. It's not to excuse their violence or whatever the behavior, but still, like the movie fails, and I think you're right that it may have been somewhere in this movie an attempt to address some of those systemic issues in the urban area, in urban life in the 80s, but this movie doesn't want to deal with it.
Yeah, it was like that any part of the movie that dealt with that was like strongly surgically removed, and which is really a shame because I think you could have still had a movie with a fairly conservative message that would have been consistent with the first two movies, but also have like a more sophisticated plot. I mean, because it really would have been interesting seeing Charles Bronson go up against a corrupt police chief.
Right.
It would have definitely had more twists and more unpredictability than what we got. Where the movie. To the movie's credit, it's not so bad that there are like a couple of tense scenes where Charles Bronson is shown to be human, like the scene where the gang almost traps him and he has to flee up or rather his stunt double has to flee up like different fire escapes and run through somebody's apartment. So the movie doesn't fall into the trap of making him invincible, but it's just him against like these cartoonishly evil people.
Yeah.
Which is really sad because like the first scene where the police chief is just like attacking him and gloating about being able to take away his rights. I mean, and that sets him up as a more compelling antagonist than the gang leader ever is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the gang leader is. Yeah, he's a non-entity really. Just this goofy guy with a reverse mohawk.
Yeah,
you're right. No, because I think So it could have raised interesting questions about the police chief's tactics, but then maybe would have led to some kind of self-reflection on Charles Bronson's part. Like, hey, wait a minute, what am I doing? Right?
Yeah.
I am shooting this again. Back to the giggler, just shoots a kid in the back for stealing a camera. Right? It's that what gives you the right, Charles Bronson, to do this? But no, he doesn't want to go there. And it's it maybe could have been a better movie, but it's still. I wouldn't expect a whole lot more from Canon either, to be honest.
But I have to admit though, as much as like, because yeah, when you watch, and I think that is a problem with American politics, and not just the right wing, but you also see a lot from people who describe themselves as liberals, like the idea that it's not the system, it's always individual choices, and that's kind of
Right.
what you see with the gang members. And I think probably not showing them addicted to drugs, even though there is like a little bit about
A little bit of it, yeah. Well, and that the leader gives them drugs before they go kill people. Right? It's almost like the way child soldiers are given drugs in Africa,
yeah.
the world, right? That you have these war leaders giving people drugs in order to get them to kill, and that's not addressed in the movie. Whereas
Yeah.
it's clear before, when the first time they really go out and kill, the gang leader is giving his gang drugs, saying, "Hey, take these drugs and go out and do what you got to do." So a missed opportunity, but it was still. I don't know. I enjoyed watching it. It's kind of dumb fun in a sick, twisted kind of way, I guess.
Well, especially the last 30 minutes. I mean, if you can just turn your brain off, which Charles Bronson turned his brain off when he did this movie, because he just he doesn't do a bad job in it. I don't
No,
want
he's
to get that
fine. He's a
impression,
fine actor. Yeah.
but he just does not give a shit, and it's kind of glorious.
Yeah. He got paid like $1 million to do something like that, so
Yeah, because he didn't want to originally, if I remember correctly.
he didn't. Yeah. So they offered it to Chuck Norris.
Oh God,
And
no,
Chuck
that would have
Norris
been
said
bad.
the violence was too negative or something.
Really? For
Yeah.
Chuck Norris?
Yeah. I
That
think
is
he read and said,
fantastic.
"There's no point to this violence. So why would I do this?" Charles
But
Bronson. Yeah. For $1 million, I would start on a lot worse movies. So a lot cheaper than Charles Bronson.
well, yeah, I do love the last 30 minutes of this movie. I mean, it's uncomfortable because there's like yet another scene where a woman is is about to be raped. Charles Bronson saves her, but it's an excuse for the camera to focus on her breast for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but just like seeing the movie literally go insane and just have like this orgy of nonstop horrific violence is
Yeah.
kind of awesome.
Yes,
I have to say.
Mike Winter just let his id take over, right?
Yeah.
The movie's pure id by the end.
It really is, in a way that you couldn't plan for, honestly.
No, I don't think they did have any idea what they were doing.
I don't think so either. But do you, so you would say that the movie, or at least the last 30 minutes of it, is a worthy addition to the trash canon?
Totally, yeah. No, yeah. Especially the gangs show up and get biker gangs and everyone cheering when people are killed, and it's Charles Bronson holding the barrel of a machine gun, and the machine gun barrel doesn't get hot, which I would assume it gets hot. I don't know anything about guns. Yeah, no, it definitely does deserve. The whole movie deserves being the trash canon because I think it's trying to do something, but it fails on about every single level, and it's just this pure, unadulterated, earnest trash. Really, I think Michael Winton was trying to say something with this movie, and the earnestness of it is horrifying. That we are seeing one man's view of the world. You think, oh my God, people like this exist, and they have a lot of money and power. We have people like that, our president now.
Yeah.
And it's horrifying. So the earnestness of it is what is kind of makes it deserve to be part of trash can. But the earnestness of it, especially looking at our politics today and who our president is and how he uses the same sort of dog whistle politics to fire people up. I bet you Donald Trump loves this movie if he saw it. I bet you he would love it. if he could pay attention long enough.
God, I can't even imagine him needing to fast forward through parts of Death Wish.
Oh yeah, no, Bloodsport.
Bloodsport. Well, I mean, this movie too. If he
yeah. God damn, yeah. Don, I think it was Don Jr. or Eric. I don't know if fast forwarding through Bloodsport with the journalist there with them.
But please watch Death Wish 3 unless you think you would find the politics too horrifying.
They are horrifying. At one point, I would have. So I'm glad I watched it, and I think it's horrifying, but it's also still hitting a little too close to home now. Feels a little too real, and I think maybe it was made in the 80s when you had Reagan who did the same thing, but I think Reagan, I don't know. He was a lot more harmless which is crazy to say that Reagan was more harmless than somebody, but he's probably more harmless than Donald. And the difference is Donald explicitly supports this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas Ronald Reagan would say stuff that would align up this movie, but not be so just upfront about it and so blatantly racist and awful and a lunatic. I'm not sure you wanted this to turn into an anti-Trump thing, but it is now.
No, I mean, like I said, I mean, you can't not talk about politics and Death Wish at the same time.
Yeah. I have not seen the Bruce Willis one, although I'm sure that is directed by Eli Roth.
yeah. I forgot about that one. I actually enjoyed The Green Inferno. Even though like all of Eli Roth's other movies, I tend to. I don't hate them, but I just don't like them. There's just something about like Rob Zombie and Eli Roth trying to recreate the magic of 70s exploitation that just seems to fall flat.
It doesn't work because that is interesting because whereas Tarantino can do it masterfully, I think Eli Roth and Rob Zombie, maybe it's because they don't get it in the same way that Tarantino does.
Yeah. I guess we should wrap it up at this point because I think.
Well, thanks for doing this, Chad.
Yeah. Let me give my usual closing spiel. Thank you for listening, and you can find me at Chad Denton on YouTube and my show Hollywood Hates History, and also check out my ongoing Web Pro series, John and Amar, which is still going on, even though I haven't updated it in a while. But I will change that, hopefully by the time this drops. Jonathan, I know you're not working on any like YouTube or podcast right now, but yeah, feel free to promote yourself or anything you're working on right now.
I'm on Twitter. I think my handle is @RootJB. I think that's what it is, @RootJB. Jonathan Root. Find me on Twitter. I'm on Instagram under, I think, TheRoot1984. I should remember these things. I can be found on social media. And I'm not doing any web series or anything, so I have nothing like that to promote. Don't forget to promote your podcast Before Stonewall, Chad. That's good too, actually.
Check out Before Stonewall. Thank you, Jonathan, for reminding me.
I've been listening to that one too, so.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to try to have all the old episodes up by next week, and then I will hopefully get a new one done before too long.
All right.
Busy man, huh?
You're a busy man.
I know. I don't know how I. Well, no, I know how I do it. I have no social life. That helps tremendously.